Hello friends, Adam here with FED. Today we're going to talk about Gilbert from Fire Emblem Three Houses and why I think he's a better unit than people give him credit for, and how to best make use of him in my opinion. Again, like all these videos are all my opinion. I've had quite a few comments telling me that I am an elitist or that I shouldn't tell people how to play their game, and I'm not telling you how to play your game. It's a single player game. I'm just having fun talking about it. Feel free to do whatever the heck you want. But I do want to, I don't know, some people find it helpful when I share these things, so I'm going to keep doing it. So there you go. Anyways, Gilbert. Gilbert's dope. I love Gilbert. Look at that hair. He has a gray streak. I relate with that. I have gray hair too. And I'm only 24. And I started getting the gray hair when I was 18. Oh man, those stressful teenage years. Oh my, got to me. Anyways, here's Gilbert. There's his picture. He's an old man. His growth rates are like, that's Eloise. So 55 HP is his standout, with 45 strength and defense being really good, and 45 dex is good, and then everything else is either like decent, where like charm and speed, or just kind of bad, like res and magic, and luck. Now, I couldn't find an accurate depiction of his stats when he joins in Azure Moon Chapter 13, and I honestly just didn't feel like playing through the entirety of Blue Lions Part 1 right now, so I'm just going to use this as my basis to talk about him, because his bases, when he joins, do reflect his growth rather well. He does have a high HP base, he does have a great strength base, he does have a great defense base, but he's going to be slow, and that's weak to magic. But that's pretty standard for a Fortress Knight, right? So I think a big reason a lot of people don't like Gilbert is because of his class that he starts in. Armor Knight and Fortress Knight kind of like are kind of like dirty words or dirty classes in Fire Emblem as a whole. It used to be kind of like a death knell for a character to be an Armor Knight or a General. Very few cases before Three Houses where Armor Knights were actually good or were worth using. Their low movement was like just hard to work around, and their stats didn't justify moving them so slowly and slowing everyone else in your army down so they could keep up. But here in Three Houses, with all the movement tech and everything, with stride and all the different combat art movement, warps, rescues, all this different stuff that's so available, even like so early in the game, it makes it so a Fortress Knight or an Armor Knight is honestly a lot more fun to use. So I think that's one reason people don't like Gilbert. His stats, like especially compared to your other units you get them, don't look as impressive, but also his class is just kind of has a bad connotation attached to it. But continuing, I want to talk about how we can make the most of his kit and make him an honestly fun and interesting character to use. It does take a bit of work, but I don't think it's that hard to do. And it all revolves around some of his learned abilities and combat arts. But I do want to, just as the combat arts are less important, but I do want to go over them really quick just because I want to be thorough here. Shatter Slash is fine. That reduces defense of an enemy, I believe. Glowing Ember is the standout here. A Lances. It's too bad it's in Lances and not in something else that I think would be better for him. But Glowing Ember takes his adds a quarter of his defense to his attack power or something like that, which is insane, especially with an amazing defense stat that he'll have. And then Spike is just a strong axe attack. It's like Smash, except with like slightly more hit. I mean, slightly less hit and slightly more damage. So it's interesting, but I don't know, it's not that great. But more importantly are his learned abilities. Rally defense is fine. I like rally defense. I mean, +4 defense on an enemy phase, especially if you have a unit who's really tanky. Could make the difference between them surviving 10 hits and surviving only 6 hits or something like that. So that could be a big difference. But the real kicker, if you want him to be a really solid combat unit, is Battalion Wrath, and working around that specific ability to make him a just amazing potential frontliner in your army. So Battalion Wrath, when your battalion has a third or less of its max endurance, he gets plus 50 crit on enemy phase. Plus 50 crit on enemy phase. With like a Killer Axe plus, or a Killer Lance plus, a Wu Dao plus, and just a decent dexterity stat. Could be almost guaranteed crits on enemy phase. And with Gilbert's really high strength, that could equal just like wrecking enemies, just totally one-shotting them every time he gets attacked. And all you need to do is add like retribution to that if you want him to attack everything. Then his high defense allows him to make good use of that. But we're going to not even need his defense with some of the setups we're going to talk about. And for the sake of completion, I do want to talk about his proficiencies. He doesn't have any negative proficiencies, which is great for him. It means it's easy for him to learn stuff. And really great in lance, axe, armor, and riding. I think the one that's most important here is axes, and we'll talk about why in a minute. So now I want to talk about some classes that you might want to go into as like a final class for Gilbert. First, I want to talk about the ones that the game kind of pushes you towards, the one that a lot of people will tell you to do, and the one that I think is fun and not that hard to get into overall. So, Great Knight is the one the game pushes you towards with all of his rankings. You know, he has a proficiency in axes, proficiency in heavy armor, and a proficiency in riding, meaning it's really easy for him to get into this class fairly quickly. So don't, like, people like this class. I mean, I don't like this class personally, and a lot of people don't, I think. So I don't think it's the best. It's the one the game's like the canon pick for him. It works really great. Works really well with his combat art, Glowing Ember, with Lance Fair if you want to really make good uses of that. But I would much rather have him in a class that synergizes better with using Battalion Wrath. Now the next class that everyone will tell you is his best class, I think, but this is what most people will say, is Wyvern Lord. And for most physical units, this is true. Wyvern Lord, at least for males, is really great. I think I might prefer Falcon Knight for females in some instances, but Wyvern Lord's really good. Axe Fair works well with his axe proficiency. It's easy for him to get there. He doesn't have proficiency in flying, but it's not hurt. It's honestly, he'll learn it anyways, especially if you just put him into Wyvern Rider first. That only requires a C in flying, which you can be gotten in a couple months or a couple chapters. So not that hard to get into Wyvern Rider, and then he gets that rank up in battle, and therefore you can get him into Wyvern Lord pretty easily. So that's one that a lot of people will point out. I don't think he really benefits from Avoid +10. He does like Axe Fair and Canto, but I think there is still better options for him overall. Now, my favorite pick for Gilbert, and this, I think there's better picks, but I think this is just, it specifically is a pick that requires not much work to make him work really well with the kit that he has. And that's Hero. So he'll already have the axe rank to get into Hero, which is great, but he still needs a little bit of work with swords, but you can get there. It doesn't take that much work, especially if you do some saves coming with your certifications. You don't need a B rank in sword. You can do it with a C+ or a C, I believe, and make it work. But the big reason we want this class is for the Battalion Wrath Vantage combo. So Vantage, when you're under 30%, or you have, it's actually a third, if you have a third or less of your max HP, you always attack first on enemy phase. So you combine that with his Battalion Wrath that he gets just by getting a C+ in Authority, and he will have a good chance at the very least of attacking first and critting on enemy phase, especially if you pair this with a skill like if you pair this with Retribution or the Chalice of Beginning. Now this is going to make Gilbert a enemy phase just monster murder machine as long as he one-shots. As soon as he doesn't one-shot an enemy, he's going to be in some serious trouble and serious danger, but that just takes a little bit of planning. You just need to be a little careful. And having a really good strength stat that he does, I think it's a pretty viable option. So what I would do is put him into this class, Hero, give him a Battalion Wrath as well. Hopefully get, it already has Sword Fair. Hopefully you have Death Blow on him. for player phase, but if you're more enemy phase oriented, that may not be as important. So maybe some other skill, maybe just like strength +2. Anything to buff his attack output on the enemy phase would be great. So yeah, I just forge him a Wu Dao Plus. You know, you have to get him to, like, I think that's an A rank sword, or it's an A+ rank sword. It's just an A rank, there's no A+ rank. This is an A rank sword, just so get him to A rank sword so you can use a Wu Dao Plus, have his crit be sky high, and just allow him to just dunk on enemies on enemy phase. I think that's the most fun build you could have for Gilbert. I don't know how viable it is, honestly, like the end game or whatever, but for sure on normal and hard, it'd be a lot of fun. On maddening, it might not work as well, but it could still be cool. But yeah, that's what I would do to Gilbert to make him a little more exciting. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about Gilbert? How do you use him? What are your favorite classes for him? I'm sure there's going to be some people that mention Grappler or War Master, which are great. Warrior would be interesting too. But I really, really like the idea of Battalion Wrath with Hero. I mean, Battalion Wrath and Vantage with Hero. So yeah, again, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time, friends.